think we're going to kick off then, because I think more or less everybody's here, and I'm going to do a little bit of introductions. There is quite a lot of us, so I don't want to take up too much time because I want to get quite into some of the new stuff that you're probably all here to see today, along with some of the new updates that we're going to cover off. So I've got a really loose agenda that we want to cover off. Again, loose timings, that's probably more for us to try and keep on track as an SVL Calabrio team, because we've got quite a lot of stuff that we want to get through. So thanks to a lot of you for sending through ideas. That's what we want. We want ideas for this kind of session. So we're going to go through sort of some introductions, get some Calabrio direction material off for Rich Pinnington, who's kindly joined us this morning. Charlie, as you probably just heard from there, is going to go into the new next gen WFM. So yeah, he will be on screen quite a lot, I would imagine. I built in a comfort break as well, because I think it's going to be a bit long to go screens. So whilst we're going to keep it informal, you are going to see quite a lot of screens, because that's probably the only way we can knowledge share. Then we're going to go into some new and recent updates from Chris. So he's been sending out some PowerPoints recently. So he's going to recap on some of the stuff in there, and it's a chance to ask questions. And then we're going to go into some networking topics that you provided. So one of the ones that came through from a few people was around channel prioritization in the system. So Chris is going to go through an explanation of some of that, and hopefully that'll help and prompt some questions, and we can have a bit of discussion if there's time for it. Indy's going to run through the ideas portal because that's moved. And then if we've got time, we can go into some AOB topics. And then, yeah, if we get to this point in time, we can wrap up and see if we've enjoyed the session, if it's been useful, and agree how we're going to network going forward and use your time, your valuable time, really wisely. So just before we get into sort of the whys and wherefores for how this came about, if I could just ask the kind of, first of all, the SVL and Calabrio team to introduce themselves. So if we can go around the screen in that picture order, if that's all right. So, Anne, I know you haven't got an active role today, but I'll let you introduce yourself to the people that might know you.
Sure. Well, I think most people on here today know me, but I'm Anne Holmes. I'm an account director for SVL and work really closely with Richard building this WFM practice, which, this is all part of. I think, those of you who I've spoken to about it, this is what we want. We want to be more than just a provider of your WFM technology. We want to encourage this sort of networking and best practice. But this session will absolutely be led by our consultancy team in conjunction with Calabrio. No sales at all. We're not trying to sell anything to you. We're just trying to inform you and answer any questions you might have.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sam. Yeah. Rich, do you want to do a quick intro?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Sam. Thanks, Richard. I'm Richard Pinnington. Morning, everybody. My role is in our partner team. So we kind of collectively, a small group of us, look after the kind of key Calabrio partners that have the very important relationships with a great many of our end customers like yourselves. So I'm the conduit for the SVL team here back into the rest of Calabrio, and really happy to join everybody today.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rich. Indy?
Hi, I'm Indy. Most of you will know me as I work on and support the Calabrio system. So I'm like your first point of call for any queries or questions that you have.
Brilliant. Thanks, Indy. Chris?
Yeah, I'm Chris Ward. I've met most of you, I think, at some point. So I'm the WFM trainer and consultant for SVL.
Brilliant. Thanks. Everybody, I believe, knows me on this call, so I'll pass straight over on to Charlie, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks very much. Charlie Snedden, Senior Solutions Engineer. So I'm generally involved in presenting at early stages of engagement. Also, like Chris, I can be involved in other aspects of deployments, training and installations and such like.
Brilliant. Thanks, Charlie. And I am going to quickly whiz round everybody, if that's okay. If you can just sort of say who you are and the company that you're from, just so everyone gets a feel for who else is on the call. I know it might take a little bit of time, but I just think it's really important for ongoing networking. So, Imran, I know because we've had a bit of banter this morning, can you go first, if that's all right?
Yeah, no worries. My name's Imran Dadabai. I'm at Charles Tyrwhitt in the contact centre. Yeah, I've been here for about 18 years.
Brilliant. Thanks, Imran. Is it Umid? Am I pronouncing your name right?
Yeah, that's me. Hi there, guys. Yeah, so I'm quite new to Charles Tyrwhitt. Probably about 2 months in, or not even that. Actually, a month in now. Yeah, so I'm fairly new, and yeah, I work with Imran. Yeah, at Charles.
Brilliant. Thanks, Imran.
Welcome.
Nice to meet you. Yeah, welcome and nice to meet you.
Nice
Hope you enjoy it.
Thank you. Yes.
Neil, you're next on my screen, so sorry to pick on you.
Yes, fine. Yes, I'm Neil, resource specialist, Animal Friends Pet Insurance.
Brilliant, thanks.
Yeah.
Hi Neil, welcome to SVL and welcome to the call.
Hi, Neil.
I'm trying to follow through who I haven't asked. We have got another Neil on the call as well, Neil Flannery. So I'll go to you next if that's okay.
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone, my name's Neil Flannery. I've recently just joined Connect Health. This is my 4th day, but so nothing like jumping in.
Yeah.
So I don't know very much about Calabrio. It's not a system that I've used before, but I have used WFM systems for probably over the past 20 years now, predominantly variants. So hopefully that'll help us out.
Brilliant. Well, welcome again, Neil. It's a first timers call, I think. It's as a local radio DJ that probably Neil Flannery, you might understand that from my part of the country. Would once say. Just looking down the list, we've got James Carney.
Hi everybody, I'm James Carney, responsible for planning at Clarity Business Travel.
Hi, thanks, James.
Hi, James.
Lisa O'Fay, if that's okay.
Hello, I'm Lisa O'Fay, Resource Planning Manager for the North West Ambulance Service for 111.
Brilliant, thanks Lisa. Morning.
Hi Lisa.
Morning.
Lisa Smith.
She's no microphone, Rich.
Ah, right, okay. So she works with you then?
Lisa Smith's one of my scheduling analysts.
Ah, brilliant.
Morning,
well, welcome
Lisa.
Anyway.
Hi.
I've done Neil's. Sarah Rowell.
Hi, I'm Sarah Rowell. I'm the reporting officer for NCSE, who is an awarding organisation in the North East.
Brilliant. Thanks, Sarah.
And we've got Jerry Ash Baker.
Okay. Jerry, do you want to go next?
Yeah, hi, I'm Jerry Aird. I am planning manager. I work at Trainline, and we've had Calabrio now for about 18 months, just about.
Brilliant. Thanks, Jerry. Got Stacey Barrow.
No microphone, one of my guys again.
Ah, right, okay. Thanks, Lisa. Who else did you say as well, Anne? Sorry,
We've got Becca.
Hi, Becca. How are you doing?
Hi, yeah, so I'm Becca. I'm the Senior Workforce Planning Analyst here at Deliveroo, and I'm a massive fan of Calabrio.
We've got Ash from Accent Housing as well.
Hi there, yeah, my name's Ashley Hewitt. I'm Resource Planning Manager for Accent, which is a housing association based up in Yorkshire.
Brilliant.
Morning,
thanks, Ash. I think that might be anybody. Apologies if I've missed anyone at all.
Becky Young.
Ah, sorry, Becky, yeah, you're at the top of my list there. Apologies.
That's okay, I'll let you off. Becky Young, I work with Neil at Connect Health, so we've had Calabrio since February, middle of February we've started using it, so very new to the system.
Brilliant.
We've
Thanks,
also got Ian Webster.
Yeah, Ian, sorry.
Morning everyone, Ian Webster, also Charles Tyrrett. I'm the Senior Forecast and Analyst.
Brilliant. Thanks, Ian.
Hi,
Good to see you again. Apologies. I don't know what's happened to my list. I was reading down a list, honestly, so apologies if I've missed anybody at all. I know you've also got Bruce, you'll notice on the list, who's not pictured on the screen, but he's one of our project managers at SVL. I had said to him he can just dip in and dip out as he wishes. So, Bruce, I don't know if you want to say a quick hello while you're on. You're on mute. You're on mute.
Yes, I'm talking and no one can hear me. Good morning. I'm one of the project managers within SVL, delivering the Calabrio project. So I'm really just on here to see if there's anything that I can pick up in lessons learned and things from earlier deliveries if anything comes out of this session. So it's more a learning session for me as opposed to contribution.
Brilliant. Thanks, Bruce.
Good morning.
So I know that took us quite a little bit of time, but it probably just goes to show how many people we've got on the Calabrio system within SVL. And just a quick slide here, because as a resource planner, I'm afraid to admit I've already overran my slot, which is not a good theme. But just to quickly set the scene for the session, I know we've talked to a lot of you about running these sessions, and Anne mentioned that it's something we've always wanted to get underway. It's a specific Calabrio Teleopti session, specifically diving into things that you want to talk about that system. So those of you that have been with us longer will know that we've ran face-to-face events when those things actually happened before the C word happened last year, and we intend to carry on running those again once we can get back up and running. Last year we did a lot of web events, including 2 specific events, planning for the new norm and living in the new norm. But they were probably more thought leadership. So the idea of today is probably still a little bit thought leadership, but more digging into the system. So digging into the slide you see there, the two right-hand halves. So looking at like kind of networking groups and how we can support you in that wraparound way. I'm not going to take up any more of your time because I need to hand over to Rich, who's going to go through some of the what's next for Calabrio. So Rich, over to you if that's okay.
Yeah, thank you, Richard. Yeah, I thought I was glad that you took the time to introduce yourselves, because it's clear we've got some longer standing users and some very new users as well, and new starters within companies too. So I thought it was worthwhile just to try and paint a bit of a picture about what we're up to right now and what Calabrio is, and how that word Calabrio relates to the Teleopti platform that you're utilizing today, and the organization that perhaps you bought some years ago. So back in 2019, the organization that we are today, called Calabrio, acquired Teleopti. And as many of you know, Teleopti was one of the world's leading workforce management applications, and the product that you're all using today. Calabrio has got a broader set of products within its portfolio, in a portfolio that's often referred to as workforce optimization, or as workforce engagement management, as Gartner has decided they'd like to call that topic now. But on the diagram on the left, I've just kind of shown where those components tend to sit inside of the overall technology stack that most of your centres will be running in some shape or form. And so you can see exactly those elements that Calabrio addresses. So what we've been doing, and the reason that Calabrio acquired Teleopti, was that Calabrio already had its own workforce management application. So there's now within the company 2 workforce management products. The Calabrio as a business is predominantly, until the Teleopti acquisition, is predominantly based out of the US, out of North America. So it was a product that was tuned to North American employment regulations rather than being more globally applicable and tuned to the particular requirements of many different international countries, as Teleopti is. So the acquisition essentially brought in a more relevant product and a stronger product into the Calabrio stable. And what we've been doing since acquisition is starting that process of, first of all, integrating people into teams, integrating our various processes and tools and back-end systems, but also now integrating products as well. So we're essentially taking the Teleopti product and bringing it inside the Calabrio suite, and that is going to start to have an impact, and you'll see an impact, and Charlie's going to talk about this a little bit following me. But the impact on you is that all of the functionality that you recognize today will be accessed in a slightly different way as this product becomes part of a suite. So on the main diagram here, you'll see this layer I've got at the top, this Calabrio One, a common user experience and login across all components of the suite. So we're going through a process right now of putting in place this common login approach, which will take you into the Calabrio experience. And Charlie will show it shortly. And from there, you'll be able to click on WFM and get access to all of the usual functionality that you're familiar with. So those are some of the changes that we're working through over the coming months, and we'll start to communicate with you. And some of you may already have started to see some of the comms that we've been publishing around that. And then the other piece that I wanted to just spend a moment on, and certainly you'll hear about it during this morning, is this layer below, this Data Explorer layer. This is a common reporting and dashboard capability that is consistent across all components of the suite, but now is available, or will become available, to the existing TWFM, the Teleopti WFM users, once we make the transition. So the transition will kind of give two key things. One is this new login experience, and then the second bit is access to this powerful reporting and dashboard layer. Any questions on that? I'm going to talk a little bit further about it shortly, but just anything you'd like to ask me around this general topic from the opening comments I've just made. I'll push forwards if not.
I was just going to say, Rich, it's not necessarily a question from me, but I was just going to say it's worth pointing out that the Calabrio One suite, it's always been really important to Calabrio to have the suite. So rather than bespoke and point solutions, having that overall reporting capability that you were talking about and having a single logon experience has always been really important into the core of what Calabrio offers. But it's also key to remember that you can just have WFM on its own.
Absolutely.
And that's something else to remember.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you kind of moving into a world where, based on your permissions, where your permissions is the software that you've bought, that's what you see when you log into the suite. Yeah, exactly. Thanks, Charlie.
Come to the next slide, Rich. Sorry.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you. And I just wanted to touch on some of the priorities for us for this year, the kind of those key things that we're working on. Obviously, the integration that I've just described of a whole workforce management application into an existing software suite is quite a significant undertaking. So there's an awful lot of our product and development resources are focused in on that. But I also referenced that there's two WFM products now within the portfolio. So we're having to kind of look at the feature sets and merge those feature sets. But over 95% of the product that we have will be the original Teleopti WFM product, and then we'll be pulling other, let's call it best of the best, out of the existing Calabrio WFM product as well to enhance what you have. So anything you see will ultimately be enhancements. I'll talk about shift bidding and meetings on the following slide, but I also just wanted to touch on two other things on this point. As we pull these products together into one suite, we are very much focused on cloud with respect to that. If I just give you an insight into the new business that we've done over the course of the last 12 months, nearly 80% has been cloud deployments and new business associated with our cloud option. That's a significant change over a very short period of time, and I don't think any of us really are surprised to hear that or to learn that based on everything we've experienced. But I would also just emphasize that the start point for the transition to that world of new WFM, where we sweep that Teleopti product into the suite, that's absolutely focused on the cloud community of users first and foremost. And then at some point next year, we'll work on the on-prem users. But we're seeing lots and lots of requests for not just cloud from a new business point of view, but also for migrations too. So you may have seen conversations within your own companies for those of you that are on-premise Teleopti today, but more generally as a strategy that you've been on-premise for much of your technology, and the last 12 months has forced you to take a fresh look at how all of that works. But the message I want to land is a lot of the development for software companies like us is really focused in on the cloud part of the portfolio and less so on the on-prem. So any kind of innovative feature sets that we're working on tends to be focused on that part of the portfolio. And then the other thing that we're working on is, once you're in cloud, obviously the uptime, the availability of the cloud and the application sitting within the cloud is crucial. And we're pushing this year towards a goal of starting to get to some excellent availability stats. They're often referred to in terms of nines, that either 3 nines, which would be 99.9% availability, and you can do a calculation of what that represents over all of the available minutes across a year, and what that would look like if you were only at 99.9%. But we're pushing to 99.99%, which is 4 nines, and that's a significant ambition, a significant thing for us to drive towards, but it's also a significant thing in the industry. And then the other thing that we're doing is developing and building on the existing customer needs. We'll be talking about the ideas portal a little later. So Indy and I will cover that off in the second half of the morning. But that the taking of customer input, reviewing it within our product team is a structured approach, and many of the new features that we develop and much of the features that we have today have been developed on the back of customer input. And we certainly want to encourage all of you to have your say. All customers are equal, and we've got an opportunity to contribute to how we shape the product. I'll talk about that later. And a couple of key things that we're working on right now. We've got a part of our organisation that sits aside from the R&D team. We call it the Innovation Centre, and it's an opportunity for a team of R&D guys to go and spin up new applications and do really quick start. It's like an incubation unit almost for new features. So this team has been working on a dynamic shift bidding solution, and we're going through the process of integrating that into the product right now. And then the way that we operate with that particular team is they go and build that, we go and make use of it, and then the whole thing gets properly and fully embraced and adopted within the product portfolio. So that's the second stage, but we'll be introducing that feature set during this quarter. Q2 is the quarter that we're in, the April to June quarter. And then the other piece that we've been working on, I've been working on for some time, as many of you will know, is something called Meeting Planner, which is a development that we're doing to replace the existing Training Planner, which was a product that we OEM'd from another organization. We're continuing that development. We've got a preview of the kind of first iteration of relatively simple features associated with that's due for preview right now. And then that development will continue through the rest of this year as we add in many of the other pieces of functionality of the original Training Planner OEM, which is now end of sale. So that's the kind of couple of the key feature bits, but we'll hear about features and developments from the rest of the team a bit later.
Do you want me to the next slide, Richard?
Yes, please. Thank you.
Just thinking, conscious of time, I'm wondering how many slides we can sort of
send
out as a pack afterwards and let Charlie get into the demo.
I think I wanted to just kind of dwell on this. I think you're right. Well, for the other slides we've got. Let's circulate, and then we can answer questions around them. But this just talks to the process of transition associated with that new WFM. We've got various documents associated with this. I think, Richard, you've likely shared them with most of the people on this call already. But I think sharing again, there's no harm in that. And if we need to run a specific session around that transition as we get closer to it, it's probably a good idea, rather than trying to cover off that important topic right now.
Yeah, and I think what I would say to everybody is if you've got any questions or concerns around that, please get in touch with myself and or any of the team at SVL, and we'll follow up with some of that documentation or follow up with conversations, Rich, if that's...
Yeah, absolutely. What I did want to do is just real quickly, just because it's going to help set the scene as I introduce Charlie to do the demo. I just wanted, number 3 on this point, and I talked about it on the diagram earlier, is this Data Explorer capability. I do want to just kind of rattle through a couple of visuals on that to help set the scene, because it's superb. I think you're going to love it, right? And if we just go on to the next one. So this Data Explorer, it's all about how we take the data out of that exists in the platform already and bring it to life to create easy to use reports and dashboards that you can utilize in your companies for each type of user. So as resource planners, you could create your own dashboard. For agents, they could have their dashboards, which would be available to them on login. It's a really powerful tool. And if you kind of skip forward a bit, just to give you a flavor of how all this stuff works. So there's a library of data that's already set up within the platform. And from this library, you'll be able to make selections to essentially start to build out reports, and from those reports to build out the dashboards. And the beauty of it is you don't have to be a data scientist to get a tune out of this platform. If I can kind of mix some metaphors, you essentially can just very intuitively start to create reports and dashboard widgets yourself. So on the right hand side, and Charlie will show this a little bit later, you can kind of just start to say, well, what is it that I want to show? how do I want to show it, and what type of filters do I want to apply. And it's really intuitive to build. Internally, we're running through some of the training for this product. All of us have to do it, and I'm not particularly savvy on things like this, and I was able to go and build some quite exciting reports and dashboards myself. So it's really straightforward to do. And then just skip forward if you could, Rich. This bit, if just behind this image here, you'll see a grid, and you can basically kind of drop little squares or oblongs onto this grid, widgets essentially, to kind of build out your own dashboards and then configure the particular square that you've built with the information to graphically display the information that you've created. Very, very straightforward to do, very powerful, very flexible, and you can personalize it for each persona that it's using the platform, as I said. And then the final one before I hand across to Charlie to bring this stuff to life. This is an example of one of the dashboards that you'd see, and also an example of the user experience overall. We'll see that WFM is highlighted in the red tab bar at the top, and there's all of the various component features that you're already familiar with. So that's going to be a flavour of the change in the user experience to what you've got today. And we talked about permissions as well. So if you weren't using all of the components of the suite, just WFM, then you wouldn't see some of the things associated with like call recording and quality and analytics. You'd only see WFM related information. That's it for me.
Yeah. Brilliant. Thanks, Rich. Apology. I probably should have given you some more time, so I've rushed you through there. So
no,
apologies
it's okay.
for that.
Yeah, it's not a problem.
Hopefully everyone's found that useful. I'll quickly straight over to you then, Charlie, if that's okay. So give you as much time as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one of the things to echo, which Rich was talking about there with regards to Data Explorer, is the ease of use. I think when he was mentioning there that internally we all have to learn the product, we go through training and do little tests and exams. And one of the things I think we done about 2 years ago was we had a competition internally where everybody within Calabrio created their own personalised dashboard, and it went out to I think the final 5, and it was one of the non-WFM users. So it wasn't somebody who uses WFM on a day-to-day basis, created their own personal dashboard. They put in a picture of their children. They were in Disneyland. They had a photo of the castle in Disneyland, and it just won the hearts and minds of everybody who was using it. And I think that's the key thing. It is simple and easy to use, and you don't need to be an expert. But what I want to show you today is the kind of difference in experience. And I know that some of you on the session today I've met virtually, so you'll have probably seen a similar presentation from me in the past. But there's a couple of extra things that you might get out of today that I might have not shown you during that presentation. So the first thing that we experience is that the whole login experience has changed. So we will be going through what we refer to as our single sign-on capability, and that allows us to match up all of the pieces of software. So our reporting, our WFM, our quality and analytics. And you can see here that it's just a different login screen. The login process is still the same. You can log in with your email address, and as long as I spell my name correctly, we'll be okay. And we can log into the platform. Now, I have multiple tenants, and this could also be yourself if you have a training tenant, and it allows you to drop down within the system. So if you do have multiple environments, such as maybe a test environment, a training environment, then you would have access to that. And the guys who have used WFM more recently in the thick client that you have, or the Windows Virtual Desktop, you'll be familiar with this screen because it's telling you about the Ideas portal, the Success portal, and how you can sign up and sign into that. I think one of the key things here to remember is this is the web portal for the entire suite. So we've got our navigation along the top of the screen where we've got our home page. We have our recordings for our quality management. We move forward, we've got workforce management, and in the workforce management tab, you can see all of the links to those modules within WFM. So our people module, our forecasting, our intraday, our budgets, our reports, all that capability is available. And as Rich says, we're developing that and we're progressing that as we go throughout the year and the future years to come, whereby all our new functionality will be in the web product. So when we talk about the meeting planner, it's within the web product. When we're looking at, say, I think Chris will cover this later on, the drag and drop editing capabilities, that's within Teams. So just a couple of things there. Messaging is more around the ability to receive and send messages. It's kind of like the requests tab that you have today in your environment. But as I say, we move more to the left, we've got our analytics, we've got our Agent Explorer, and this is all to do with the capability of understanding what is happening. So it's in addition to our product, but I think one of the key things to point out here, if you're not licensed for them, if you don't have one of those products, they just don't appear in the list. So if you just had workforce management, all you'd see is WFM and Data Explorer. But if you were one of our other customers who have call recording and quality, those would all be accessible from this particular screen here. So I'm going to move into the home page, and the home page is I guess the launch pad of the platform. It allows us to see those dashboards that Rich was talking about. And this is an example dashboard of WFM where we've pulled in the key metrics from the WFM database and produced a reasonable dashboard which gives us some input to WFM. So we've got the service delivery, so we know how many calls we've answered and what the average handling time is. We know what our ready time adherence is within that particular service delivery queue. And all of this is filterable. So if you have multiple queues, you can drill into those different areas. You can also see what we've got planned, the planned schedule. So this is giving us a good kind of high level of how many hours we've got scheduled to work, how much overtime we've got in the plan, and what our preferences are filled with regards to the shifts and schedules. And as I say, this is just a taster of what you can do. If we move forward again onto another dashboard, this gives us an idea of some of the metrics within the agents. So we've got the service delivery queue again. We know what the answer volume is. We know what the average handling time is, the plan and schedule time, and we can break that down, last week's schedule versus this week's schedule for individuals. So we can see, it's not very clear on the screen, but we've got the yellow represents the after call work, whereas the green is the schedule, the red would be the additional handling time. So we can begin to break down the metrics within our agents. So when we talk about next gen WFM, really what we're talking about is the ability to get to the data where lots of customers I've worked with in the past, it's been locked in an SQL database or in a server somewhere, and we've had to go down the route of extracting data, converting in Excel or some sort of Access database, pushing it out to a reporting team, and the reporting team gives us these fantastic reports. It's just moving that capability into your hands as the WFM team. You can produce these reports, you own the data, you can report out to the contact center. I just opened that up there to any questions just now, if there's anything. No, Rich, you got anything to say there?
No, I think I just think when we've shown this to other customers, that everybody's been very excited to be able to simply get access to that level of intelligence on their operation. Mm-hmm. So it's like how, and some of the reactions have been, how quickly can I get this? It's been that type of reaction.
Absolutely, and I know this, as I mentioned at the beginning of the call, there's some people on this session today which I've spoken to in the past with regards to being new customers, and it is the insight, the speed to insight, the speed to getting access to the data, and when we bring new customers on board, we try and get it to use as soon as we can. But moving over into the My Time portal, there's some changes in here with regards to the format and the color, and this is going to continue to develop over the months and years to come. But one of the key things that we have here with regards to the new capabilities is that Grant, or the Grant bot, which some of you may have, some of you may have seen before, is now available to all users of the new platform. Now, the first place where Grant is visible is within My Time. It's this little icon at the top right-hand corner here. And GrantBot essentially is, I'll just minimize that, essentially a piece of artificial intelligence which works in conjunction with the agents. And what I mean by that is that when an agent logs in, they could be presented with a question from Grant. They're welcomed, and Grant can tell them what their shift is, and potentially tell them that they can leave early today, depending on the rules that we have. So I've got a quick video that I want to show you of the grant bot. So over here, we've got a recording I made a couple of months ago. And the kind of use case or the story behind this one was, it was one of the days where we had a lot of snow. My dog and I, well, my dog's an Alaskan Malamute, he loves the snow. So I wanted to see if I could take some time off and go exploring in the woods and determine what's going on. So the first thing I done when I woke up in the morning was log into the My Time option into the Agents tab. Now, when we do that, the first thing that happens is, the grant bot says hi Charlie, how are you doing? This is your shift today. You're working, I can't remember what the shift was. It was maybe 11 till 4 or something like that. But the key thing is it has the ability and the knowledge to understand what you're working. It obviously knows as an agent what your leave balance is, because it has that within the personal records, but it can analyze the over and under staffing. So one of the abilities is, setting within WFM your headcount, if you will. So your budget headcount or your intraday headcount, or anything that allows us to see when you can or cannot take time off. It's just your over and under staffing. So Grant says, welcome, let me check your schedule today. Tells me what I'm working. So I'm working 1 till 10, and analyzes what's capable. Can I take some time off? Can I leave early? And you can see it's given me these particular options here. So, you can imagine you're, up first thing in the morning, or you're on a back shift or a late shift. You want to have some input into your schedule. You want to come in a little bit later. So you can suggest to the system that you're going to do that. So in this particular case, I can't remember which one I chose, but essentially that goes into the grant bot. It still looks at the rules. So in this case, I'm going to use a partial day leave. And it still identifies whether or not I have the capability of taking that time off. So it goes through the automatic leave approval process. It can be approved or denied. It just depends on what we have within the system. Grant is going to expand. The capability of Grant is going to improve over the months and years to come. It's not just going to be limited to time off. We'll be able to look at training, for example. It might be that Grant has identified that you are capable of answering different types of calls. Suggest that you do a training, and then using the results of that training, apply appropriate skills to the agent's profile. So there's a lot more we can do with that. And this comes back to the ideas. Indy will be covering the ideas portal later, but when we work with you, we want to hear what you want from the product and understand, and we can put them into the development mix. Is there anybody using the Android iOS apps today with GrantBot?
So we won't have anybody. I was just going to say, Charlie, with there's people that are using the iOS and Android apps for the holiday annual leave booking and interacting with their schedules, but nobody with GrantBot. I think that's, when you asked the question earlier on, probably a question on behalf of everybody else. There's a bit of a clarification point. So what you've shown so far, and Richard's talked about the Data Explorer and the GrantBot, it's probably just a clarity that this, as Anne said right at the start, this is not a sales event. This is stuff that is coming your way. I don't know if we need to put that across a bit clearer, that effectively what we're showing you today, you will get with Calabrio going forward.
Yeah, this is not a case of look what you can buy. This is look what you're going to get.
And I think that's a clear distinction that I want to sort of kind of get across in the session today, is that effectively what Charlie's describing there is what other people are calling intraday automation, and that is very much a sales add-on. Now, that's not to say that it might not be down the line, but what we're displaying today, the expectation is that at the moment that is all part of the core product going forward. So hopefully that's something that everyone on the call would be interested in, because it's going to come your way, and seeing this today might get you thinking around, actually we would be able to use this bit, or that might be quite useful for you. I know some of our customers, for example, use the flexible breaks and lunches through the Android and iOS app, so it's basically an extension of what you're already doing to a certain extent.
Yeah, Imran's just asked you how long before we get it, which is a great question, of course. So this is about the transition process. So we taking existing Teleopta users to this new environment that we've described. This is a process that we've started right now. So we've got a team of people in place that are working on that. There's about 350, 360 customers that are current cloud users that need to come across. And so we're kind of working that schedule out. To start, we're looking at certain customers out of the US that have got very simple, very vanilla implementations rather than the kind of more complex integrations that come with their particular deployments. So we're starting the process right now, and then it'll be a process that we'll start to communicate with each individual customer and liaise with the team at SVL and through the team at SVL and on towards those of you on this call today, so that we give enough notice about what's going to happen and what that transition experience is going to be like and how we all need to prepare for it. But we've started it now, the kind of very, very much in the foothills in the early days of doing it. And we expect it to run through this quarter and into next. So hopefully our ideal situation would be that by the time we get to late September or into the autumn, heaven forbid, that we'll be deeply into the whole transition process. It's not a big bang where we do everybody on one day. It is more of a kind of a flow and a schedule of account by account, doing it that way.
I was going to say, Richard, SVL Richard, yes. With regards to your customers, does everybody online today have the web portal, MyTime?
I believe everyone should have the web portal. Everyone is a cloud customer bar one.
Right.
That is on today. So.
Okay. So I was just going to say the web portal itself, not a huge amount of change today, but going forward there will be some significant changes with regards to the way this is used. So for example, at the top of the screen, rather than having these individual pencil icons to edit, we can just edit it from a pencil icon at the top. So we're just trying to make it more user friendly. And again, this is from feedback that we've had from our customers.
Quick question for you, it's Jerry here. On the MyTime, our week starts on a Sunday, and I've not figured out if you can do it a Sunday to Saturday rather than Monday to Sunday. Have I missed something, or is that not possible for MyTime?
I'll need to double check that, because within the actual application itself, you have the ability to do the start of day week. I just can't recall if that's a global setting. Chris, can you add to that?
Yeah, that should be possible, Jerry. It's all set at the employee levels. So within the people module, we can configure that in there, so that changes the view that you will see in the client and also in the MyTime app as well.
Right. Okay. I'll pick that up later. Thank you.
Yeah, we can pick that up with you, Jerry, as well, though. But if we don't get a chance to run through it today.
You can see here the week starts on the Monday. So I could do a quick test later and demonstrate that to you, but it's set for Monday for myself.
I think I've got it, sorry, not to take up too much time, I think I've got that set as a Sunday because we're a Sunday, but on here comes through as a Monday.
Yeah, right. I think it's specific to the not the time zone, the language settings. So I'll send you some details if after this, and how you can switch it. But yeah, you can.
So thanks. Everybody will be familiar with availability and preferences, and one of the things Richard talked about was dynamic availability, and that's a new term for Teleopty or what is now Calabrio WFM users. It's from our previous WFM tool, but it's I guess a combination of both. So it will just open up the tool set that little bit more and give us more capability in the realms of availability and preferences. So I was going to go back to the reporting capability. Data Explorer is available across the entire suite. So if you've got QM, Analytics, WFM, all of those reporting capabilities are open to you. And it is just relatively simple to use. It's called Data Explorer. And when you log into it, or when you open up the application, you're presented with all the dashboards and all the reports. So you can see at the top of my screen, I've got 83 different dashboards, and that's a lot. I'm going to say that's a lot of dashboards because everybody who's in Calabrio, like myself, who does demonstrations, will create specific dashboards for projects. You can see I've got 2 at the top here, the 2 new WFM ones that I've created today, so we can display them on the system. We scroll down and there'll be reports. So we've got 431 different reports, and you will be provided with a number of reports and dashboards that you can get out of the system from day one. The beauty of this is the ability to create your own reports and then put them into dashboards. Richard's slide was good. Thank you, Richard. But I think what happens here is if we can just go into the actual product, we'll be able to see how quickly we can pull that information together. And one of the reasons that we think it is simple is because you don't need to know SQL. You're essentially just asking the system a question. So over here on the right-hand side, what is it we want to show? How do we want to group it? So is that by team, by agent, by location? And then the filters. So that could be dates, it could be queue, it could be skill. There could be a number of things that we have in here. So for example, if I go into the show measures, we've got all the measures down the left-hand side. And this is with every measure that we have within the platform. So our evaluations, our QM, or analytics. But I can filter that quite easily by clicking on tags and going to WFM. So these are all the measures that we have within workforce management. So if I go to adherence percentage daily, for example, I can click on add. And that would bring up the reporting tool. So this would normally have a number in here, but I'm connected to a system that's remote to my platform, so I don't have a number in here today. Apologies for that, but hopefully this will give you an idea. So that, let's say that was 80% or so. What we could then do is go into grouping, group that by team, click on add, and it would split it down over all the teams that we have within the platform. So in this case, we've only got the one default team within this demo environment. And then similarly, if we wanted to do it by time, we just click on the time. We can choose the dates, the years, the months, whatever time period we want. And then we can specify that over here or further on the right-hand side, whether or not we're doing it in half years or if we do specific date and time periods. So we can use a calendar drop in here as well. And once you've created the report, it simply is available within the Data Explorer list. And then what we have the ability to do is put it into a dashboard. So using this dashboard here, if I double click it, I can go into edit dashboard. Let's say I wanted to make this report smaller. So I can just grab that. I want to add in a new report. And then I can tell it what the report name is. So agent evaluation, for example, and click on apply. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is that the creation of the reports is key to any dashboard or any kind of reporting that you want to get out to the platform. And we've made it easy or easier by saying that the measures are the key attributes such as adherence or leave balance or ready time adherence or scheduled hours. Once we've got those reports, you quite easily drop them into a dashboard. And the dashboard itself is then filterable. So you can have dynamic filters whereby you can choose different date ranges, different queues. You can see that at the top where we've got date, group, team, and person. So that all filters down. We also have a series of predetermined widgets, and these number of widgets will increase as we go along, but these are, I guess, what you could refer to as predefined reports. So in this case, we've got a widget for WFM call volumes. So let me just take out that report I've added in, add in the widget, and here we can set the properties. So remove this toolbar, click on apply, preview, and then go save. And then this dashboard or this widget has all the configuration here. So we can choose day, month, we can do 6 months, we can choose the difference between a line graph and a stacked bar, and then we can choose the different metrics that we want within the system. Now, again, I don't think I've got much data that's going to cover that, but you can quite easily see how we're making it more easier to create reports and dashboards by creating those widgets, so you don't need to create a bespoke or custom report.
What I found, just to kind of add to that, Charlie, what I found when I went through this process of that training piece that I spoke of earlier, I was taking an existing dashboard and then adjusting it, and it was far easier to do it that way than taking a clean sheet of paper and trying to imagine what the dashboard needed to be like. So standard reports and standard default dashboards will come with the new WFM when we release it, and then it will be straightforward to make the edits to create the visualizations that you want from there. But training videos and then deeper dive level of consulting training will be available through SVL.
Thanks. Just one of the things I know, Charlie, you keep asking people for questions. For those that feel brave enough to come on and ask the question, but we've also got the chat for those that you're familiar with Teams. So obviously that's where Imran has asked his question in the chat. So feel free throughout this whole morning I should have encouraged that right at the start to click on the chat bubble. It'll be in your top bar and pose the question, and those that aren't talking will try and answer your question as we go along.
Yeah, I think that's the important part, because I can't see the chat bubble at the moment. So if anybody does ask a question, I'll be looking to you guys to let me know that it's occurred.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of moving into the final throes of this particular part, because I did want to get some feedback, some questions from the guys on the session today. But what I really wanted to show before we kind of wrap this up was going back to the navigation, where we've got the entire suite and we've got WFM. You can see that our products modules are within the platform. So if we went to the people module, for example, we've got all the agents, and we've just been talking internally about additional features that we're doing within the web module here, because obviously within the thick client, you have the capability of maintaining the profiles, adding permissions, and all that kind of good stuff. So we do have the people model. You can see this has been launched. So one of the great things that we have is when we have features that are either being close to being launched or are launched, you're not forced to take it immediately. You do get a bit of a warning, and we also ask for your feedback as well. So there's always a point of interest on the screen that tells you any new features that are coming up. And similarly to that, when I go back to this screen here, we've got this little icon or button, which gives us 8 updates or 8 alerts. This allows us to see, what the releases are, what the announcements are, tip of the week. So it's no longer just a point solution for WFM. You are getting some feedback, some information, some enhancements that are automatically being rolled out. And in here, we have things like the tip of the week. We can learn more. It takes you to our blog. And I think Indy's covering a little bit more about the ideas portal later. But we also sometimes have videos, learning videos in there. So if we do bring out new functionality, then you can go straight to the learning video and understand what's going on. As I mentioned, we've got the people module, so we've got staffing, insight, intraday, teams. So again, we still have the capability of looking at what we've got within our teams. And again, Chris will be looking at this in a little bit more detail, because one of the key things that we've added to this functionality is the ability to drag and drop. So we'll be able to drag and drop and edit these shifts without actually having to go into the actions button and using the move option. But everything else, the core functionality for WFM is the same. It's just the look and feel. So one of the key things to remember is the login is different, the navigation is different, and similarly, when we log into the thick client, which I'll just open up here, we're presented with a different type of login as well. So everything's been rebranded Calabrio, and that will change and be different. You can see we've got the difference between Calabrio Red and Calabrio Black. That just makes it easy for us at the moment to understand what is the new platform, what is the old, what's in transition, but everything will eventually be the same color, same profile within the system. Okay, so at that point, Richard, or both Richards, I don't know if there's much more I can go into, or if there's anything else you want me to quickly jump into.
I was just going to ask the wider audience if there's any questions at this stage, because you've managed to catch us back on time really well there, Charlie. So thanks for that, and apologies for putting pressure on you between myself and Rich. But hopefully everyone's found that really useful. Whether you want to comment now and come and speak about it, or mention any comments, we'd love to hear from you. If you want to chop it in the chat, or if you want to catch up with us afterwards as well. I realise there's quite a lot of audience on today, which is great, because that's what we want. We want to be able to network, but sometimes that can be a bit daunting for people to come on. So that's what we want, though. We want your feedback. We want to hear from you. We think it's amazing. It's a really big step forward. I know some of you that have been with Teleopsy for a while would have seen some of this originally at the conference a couple of years ago, where it was sort of drip feed. That felt like it was quite far away. Now it's on our fingertips, and so this is probably our last steps to kind of getting you ready for going over. So hopefully it feels real to you too.
Rich, just a quick question from me, Imran.
Oh, hi, Imran.
Hey, so when Charlie was showing the Teams part there, we've obviously noticed there's a new scheduler one that we've been introduced to, or drip fed, and that looks really nice actually. I like the way that works so far. So will they both exist together, or will Teams be replaced by the scheduler, or will it be Teams are for like the team leaders to do basic stuff, and we're going to remove the capability of doing certain things on there, and then scheduler will take them over, because it's a good work in progress, but it's still limited in many ways.
I don't know. Does anyone want to take that one, or
so yeah, we are being drip fed with it, and at the moment, Imran, the Teams view is still very much a team leader access. The end goal is to move everything into the web. So everything will be available via cloud, and we don't want to lose any functionality, and that's why it's slowly occurring at the moment. And you're absolutely right. I think we spoke in Manchester maybe a year and a half ago about this, and it's just what we want to do is make sure we do it right. We don't want to remove any functionality from customers today, and we don't want to rush the integration so it doesn't work for us. So at this moment in time, yes, we're slowly rolling out that functionality. My kind of idea is, yes, this is still used by team leaders and supervisors, but the resource planners will still use the thick client, and it'll be a few more months yet before we move all that functionality over, because as you know, there's loads of buttons, there's loads of options, there's those hidden menus that you right click and you then left click on and they appear. So all of that needs to be thought about quite carefully.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yeah, and Imran, you asked in chat how long before we get it in the context of Data Explorer. What was your kind of thoughts or feedback on what you saw on Data Explorer?
I like it. I've liked it before. I mean, the problem was it was chargeable at the moment. Paying for anything is always it was a bit of a stumbling block. So as soon as Anne kind of mentioned we're getting it, and it's no longer going to be a chargeable feature, yeah, I was excited to grasp on that, especially with. I mean, especially with, I know that it has a capability of APIing into other products and stuff like that as well. So I know you didn't really go into that, and that's not necessarily it's something I am aware of. So I'm looking forward to because we've only got the WFM system. So for us, the Data Explorer is going to be limited just to that, but it still be useful. However, if we can then potentially, and that might be chargeable, which is fair enough, that we can API stuff from other products into it, that will make it really powerful for us. So I'm sort of, my team members who I'm constantly bugging to do more fancy reports and pull it from different places, all the rest of it, will be quite excited to see the fact that if we can get it all in here, suddenly the analytical side that we do, or the reporting building that we have to do internally, becomes a lot more simplistic, because we can just provide this to agents, get some information from our CRMs feeding into it, and that's potentially very powerful for us.
Yeah, that's great feedback.
I think it's good to kind of point that out with regards to the API. So all the information that you see is available on export. So the approach that we're taking is that reports are now self-service, dashboards are self-service. So we don't need to schedule them so they end up in an email unread. If somebody wants to see it, they go in, they pull that information. But at the same time, that information can be automatically extracted from the system from API. So it appears as a CSV file or a JSON file, and it can be used, as you say, to create more fanciful reports. But you're absolutely right. It's, having this now will enable a lot more for you on the reporting side.
Yeah, maybe could I just perhaps pick on one of our audience, particularly Becca from Deliveroo. Appreciated your enthusiastic introduction earlier on this morning. What kind of feedback and thoughts have you got? You're there. You're on mute somewhere. Becca Macy. Maybe distracted by something else at the moment.
Yeah, maybe.
Okay. Well, if anybody else has got anything they'd like to ask or feedback to provide, it's certainly welcome.
Yeah, Ashley from Accent Housing here. I think the Data Explorer looks fantastic. I think certainly for my purposes as a resource planner, that's going to be brilliant. And I do think the key is here for unlocking kind of wider use is that import and export kind of ability. I mean, as an example here, we're kind of going through those stages of data maturity, and the wider business has set out its data strategy, which, like a lot of organisations, involves grabbing all the data from the little silos where it currently resides and centralising it onto, I think we're going to go with ClickSense as our main platform. So absolutely that import and export facility is vital, and I think it'll be fantastic for us.
No, it's good to hear, and you're absolutely right. The ability to export that and pop it into other platforms is key for some organisations like yourselves. And the way we approach it is we have this orchestral layer, and then we have a presentation layer. So the presentation layer is the graphs and the bar charts and everything yourselves, but the orchestral layer is where you can pull that information together. So we've done the hard part within the data model, which identifies the data as being calls or emails or web chats or the average handling time, and we use the orchestral layer to pull that together into a report mechanism, but that then could be squirted out to that other platform. So you can still create your reports, view them within WFM, and then tell your data strategists that this is the information that they need to put into the data lake or such like. So it does make that journey a little bit easier for WFM teams.
Yeah, absolutely, because that transformation layer can be one of the longest kind of elements of the process. So yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great question, though, Ash. And I suppose one for me, just to follow up on that, if it's okay, we've got time. So obviously, Ash, you're talking about taking the data out and putting it somewhere else, but the custom reporting access that's available with Calabrio, am I right in thinking, Charlie and Rich, you could go the other way and ingest that external data and actually use the Calabrio suite as that not just the orchestral layer, but then the display layer for other data types as well outside of Calabrio?
So there is a caveat around that, and it really depends on how that information is coming in. So typically what we would do is information would be brought in against the calls. So if we were doing the quality side of things, we could bring that information in and log it against the calls. But if we're talking about other platforms, maybe HR platforms or sales platforms or such like, then we do have another product. It's called our advanced reporting. And our advanced reporting is what allows you to bring in external data from multiple platforms. It's not something we covered today because it's not part of the suite. It's pretty much a standalone product. But if we were using the suite and your customers were using it for quality, then we have more capability of bringing in data that's aligned with the calls. So that could be post-call surveys. So we could look at some days. In the future, what we're looking at with regards to machine learning is the kind of stress that maybe answering calls puts our agents under. So we can see their schedule, we can see when they've come in, we know when they last had a break, we can see through the voice of the customer and analytics how their conversation and sentiment is going. And if we feel that there's a lack of positive sentiment, maybe stress or conversations are going the wrong way, we might just automatically schedule them a tea break. to let them get away from their phone. So the next gen WFM isn't just looking at workforce management in a silo. We're beginning to look at the other aspects of the contact center when we've got the capability of doing so. And I think that's the really exciting piece, that whole agent well-being, training capabilities, and looking after guys on the phone, because they're most, what's the word? Something asset. I'm thinking
valuable asset.
Yeah, most valuable asset. Sorry, my language had just slipped out my head there. So they're our most valuable asset, and we need to look after those guys. And that's one of the key things that we've seen over the last 12 months. You talked about the C word, where we've got people working from home. That's been a complete change. And if we go back to my time, where people have been able to change their own tea breaks and lunches, that's been valuable for people working from home. And if we can do that more often and more intelligently, then why not? And that's what we're working towards.
Brilliant. No, that's great. I'm going to wrap us up there, because I think I've built in a quick break. I'm assuming it's probably about everyone wants to sort of step away for a little bit, get a bit of screen rest. So if we sort of take 10 minutes, we'll be starting again at 10:50, and we'll be over in that section, handing over to Chris to begin with, to talk about some of the updates that have come out recently in the current product and what to expect in the next release. So thanks everyone for participating so far. Hope you found it really useful, and hope to see you all in what is 9 minutes time now. Thanks everyone. So welcome back everyone. Thanks Charlie for putting that timer up. I need to get myself one of them. That's really useful, really useful button. I'll just quickly pop the agenda back up just to say we are more or less on track. And the next bit, and thanks for Becky for coming on camera then. I think that's what we want to try and encourage. Obviously, I know not everyone's comfortable doing that, but the more we can sort of speak to each other, I think what you'll find is a lot of you as SVL customers are quite new to Calabrio. We've done WFM for a long time, but this session specifically, you are all Calabrio customers. And so Imran, I think you're probably the longest standing out of everybody. But at the same time, as you said, it's probably two and a bit years. So we're on a kind of journey together, and there's a lot of you now. So it's trying to cross-pollinate and share best practice with one another. And when I wrap up, I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. But yeah, feel free to jump on when you feel comfortable, either in the chat at the side or come on camera and interrupt us as Chris goes through the next section, because he's going to go through the kind of the newest and recent updates that I've shared via PowerPoint with you. And I think, Chris, you're going to talk a little bit through them and then go through the most recent ones on screen. Is that all right?
Yep.
Brilliant. Well,
yeah, perfect.
I'll hand it back over to you if that's okay. And I'll try and admit near again, and hopefully my system won't freeze.
Right. Okay, so yeah, I thought what we'd spend some time doing right now is just kind of going through some of the updates that have come out over the last couple of months. We did create these slide decks just to kind of help introduce some of these features before you actually get them, to make sure that you kind of understand. And while some of you might have read these and seen these updates, I thought it would be worth just recovering some of those things that have recently appeared. Kind of falls in line with what we've been talking about this morning. It's that customer-driven product enhancements that you can all contribute towards to make the product better and more user-friendly for you. So these ideas have come over the last few months before we go into the kind of most recent updates. So back in February, we kind of started introducing these features or these presentations. And the first one that we kind of covered off was the push notifications through the mobile app for agent schedule notifications. So when the schedule's changed, an employee would automatically get a notification through the mobile app to tell them their schedule's changed. But there's a feature in the product called Agent Schedule Messenger, which is a way to kind of notify employees or kind of interact and chat with those employees via the schedule screen. And it's this little notify agents button on the schedule screen, where you can actually send a chat message directly to those employees. So this is an example of a lunch change. It's me sending an agent schedule message saying, would you be willing to move your lunch? And what happens as a result of that is that then creates this little push notification, just like you would see at the top of your mobile device for other things like Facebook or whatever. And it just pushes that message out to say, here's a notification that somebody sent you that you can then view and respond to via the mobile app. So that was a really useful feature. Previously, they were in the messages window of the My Time screen, but this push notification kind of really allowed users to get those notifications promptly and view and respond to those on time. So really useful feature that came into the release in February. We then had some small changes to the scheduling window. So for those of you who might have been using Calabrio prior to the February release, one of the things you might have noticed is when you added an all-day absence to a schedule. That's this first little screenshot here. Hopefully you can all see that that window okay. This all-day absence kind of sat at the top of the schedule, which meant you couldn't really modify or edit that absence once it had been added. The change was that this all-day absence was added at the back, at the bottom of the screen, which meant that once the all-day absence was added, you could then modify and change that absence once it's been added to the schedule, should you need to, as opposed to having to delete it and re-add it in. So a small change, but a one that a lot of customers liked because it just meant a little bit of ease of movement of those all-day absences should they need it to be modified. The second change was for a feature called self-scheduling. And self-scheduling, I think Charlie mentioned this earlier on, has been a really good feature for those employees who've been working from home for the last 12 to 18 months, because it gives me a little bit of control over my schedule. And for those who are not familiar with what the self-scheduling feature is, this is the ability to move my breaks and lunches by clicking on the little pencil icon in the My Time break and lunch and being able to slide my break or lunch to a different time. And with that, we can apply staffing checks to make sure that those employees are not moving their breaks or lunches to a time that's not suitable. So they're not going to cause understaffing, or it's not going to give you too much overstaffing by sliding that break. But as an employee, it certainly gives me more interaction of what I'm doing when I'm working from home. I don't have to email somebody and ask them if I can move my break, or I don't have to pick up the phone and call planning and ask them if it can slide my break. It really gives me the ability just to move my break, and providing it doesn't impact staffing, the system will provide the ability for that change to happen. But one of the features that was added to this was to prevent employees moving those breaks and lunches on top of any planned overtime. So prior to this release, employees could move their breaks and lunches out of their core schedule on top of an overtime shift that might have been directly before or directly after a schedule. This feature here just prevented that from happening. However, I don't know if anybody on the call, and please if you can speak up, actually uses this self-scheduling feature, because I know in some of the workshops I've done recently, there's been a nervousness around using it, but I wondered if anybody on this call actually is utilising that feature for their employees.
Yeah, Chris, we're using it here at Trainline for the breaks, and it's quite popular actually. I had a few little issues with it, but I've managed to resolve those now. So it's a good feature, and the guys like it. Going back to the ASM, the agent schedule messaging. Whereabouts is this functionality to send messages? Because I'm looking now and I can't see it.
So in the main schedule screen in the client, Jerry, when you go into schedules, if you right click on a schedule, right down the bottom of that menu that appears, you've got this little notify agent box.
Yes, so you have, yes.
If you click on that, it'll actually take you to a web page. It'll open up a new web page, and it's in there that you can type that message and send that message to the employees. So it's not like it can be, because it's a free text box, it could be anything, right? It could be just a little reminder of something, or it could be ask them a question, would you like to do overtime, or whatever it might be. And it's just a way of interacting with all employees rather than sending them an email or picking up the phone. And that'll enable that message to go through to the app if they've got it.
Yep, I can see it now. I'm going to try it later after this. Thank you.
Perfect. So yeah, it's good to see that those kind of schedule. It's called self-scheduling, but you can include staffing checks with that. So it's not that people can just go and move their breaks wherever they want to. There's features in there that stop them moving their breaks too early, so they don't move everything to the start of the shift or to the end of the shift and end up going home an hour early. The system prevents that happening, but it just gives them that ability to, if I've got to nip to school to drop something off with the kids or whatever it might be, I've got the ability to just make that change without needing to ask, and the system will approve and update the schedule accordingly.
Just while you're on the previous topic that Jerry was just talking about, Chris, we've got a message in from Imran saying, can you push notifications to multiple agents at the same time? So I don't know if you could select multiple agents as you were doing that and then right click. It's not something I've tried. I don't know if you have.
I've not tried it, but we certainly can, Imran. I've got a funny feeling it is agent specific, but I will check for you and let you know.
And if it is, it definitely sounds like a good idea for the ideas process to me. But so I'll make a note of it. So thanks for that, Imran.
Okay. Yeah, cool. So yeah, this additional feature that came in February was just to prevent that those breaks and lunches being moved on top of an overtime schedule. But otherwise, the feature itself remains as it was. There was a few little minor features that came into to the web as well in February. One of those was a new search function within the web portal. That's this module here, and that's the ability to, when you're going into people, you can search for a team. You've now got a free text box. Previously, it was a pick from list, and you could pick your team and your site. You can now type things in, and that will filter those out as well.
Just let you know, Jerry's just tried that, and you can do it to multiple agents. Brilliant. Thanks for that, Jerry.
Jerry?
Sorry, I was on mute at the time. I was trying to say the same, but I've just put a screenshot in the chat as well so you can see it.
Okay, perfect. Cheers, Charlie. For anybody who uses the forecasts in the web module, because within the web portal itself, you have the ability to generate forecasts for inbound telephony workloads, as opposed to doing it through the client. It doesn't go through the whole validation piece that you would go through the client. It's more like the quick forecast that you would use in the client. But a new date range feature was added into that screen to tell you what dates you currently have forecasts going up to, so that you can easily see when you're generating a new forecast, when your existing forecast ends, so that you can use the web to generate a new forecast for days after that. So it just gives you that little date option there that highlights those what dates you've got forecast between. This one at the bottom here, this typing a search option is it might sound quite mediocre in what it does, but believe me, it has a huge impact. It's the ability to use text shortcuts to find activity codes. So for anybody who's got lots of different codes in the system, when you were typing in S for sick, it would kind of go to the first S in the list, not necessarily sick. It could be something else, where now you can actually use full text search boxes just to search for the absent codes rather than going through the list. So it does make it makes it a little bit easier to see. Hopefully, I'll just put this in full screen so you can maybe see that a little bit better. I don't know what's happened there.
We're probably seeing your notes screen when you're going through full screen. I think they're the other way around, Chris.
Right, okay. I'll switch them over in a bit. So this feature at the bottom here, and I can expand that visual there, it just allows you to type in the absence description in that drop-down box to find the absence you're looking for, rather than just taking to the first letter within that list. If you've got lots of S's, it'll take you to the first one on the list. You can now type in the full name of that description and it'll find it for you. So it's a little feature, but it's quick and speeds things up quite significantly when you're doing that.
It feels like, when you watch somebody who's experienced on Excel and they use keyboard shortcuts, that feels like one of them kind of tips to me that would be really, really useful when you're in the throes of navigating screens. So.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. And the last update that came in February was the new look help guides. So if anybody uses the help guides, the F1 shortcuts, there was just a new look and feel in line with the Calabrio help notes. So you can use these search functions to find out hints and tips about certain screens or features. And I have to say, these are really super useful, particularly for those who are new to Calabrio. When we go through the training, we throw an awful lot of information at you in those 6 days that we're together. And it's sometimes very difficult to remember everything we talk about. So these kind of help centers are really good. If you can't remember what a setting is or can't remember what a screen does, you can search for it in here and it'll give you a detailed description about each function, what the screen does, just to kind of rejig your memory. So they are super useful, and they're accessible via F1 through any screen you're in. And it'll bring up the help topic specifically for that screen and those settings. But there is a little search option at the top that you can search for as well to help you with that. That then takes us into kind of the March updates, which I'll see if I can bring this on full screen. Just bear with me a sec. And let me switch these around. I'm just going to stop sharing this and share a different screen so you can see the full screen.
It's a bit, just while you're doing that, Chris, there's been a good chat going on in the chat as well around some of that stuff and the ideas in particular. So yeah.
Okay, good.
So, generating some good ideas.
I should be able to share screen 2, and hopefully you can see that as a full screen now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's coming through.
Perfect. So in the March update, we had some additional further updates. That one of the first things that you might have seen is the new look and feel main screen. This was the change to the traditional view that you were maybe used to, with the menus going across the bottom. The change was more in line with the Calabrio view, where those menus are now down the left-hand side. With the there is a name for these 3 dot boxes, and I can't remember what the technical name is.
Ellipses.
Ellipses, that's the one. Thank you. Which then
every day's a school day.
It is indeed. So it was just a kind of the main look and feel change. Nothing too difficult, I think, to navigate. Maybe when you first logged in, you were like, oh, this is different. But the icons and everything remained the same. It was just a change of the navigation bar from the bottom to the main side of the screen. There was some new options. Yeah, sorry.
Sorry, can I ask a quick question on that one?
Yeah.
When you click on the ideas button, you have to put in different credentials. Is there any way it's going to have a pass through eventually? So when you're logged into this, all of these icons, you don't need to then constantly remember different login details.
For the Calabrio ones, yeah, I think it might get touched on in a little bit, Imran, because I think Indy and Rich have got a session just on ideas. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's a different ideas page now.
Cool. Thanks.
But I'm sure they'll touch on that. So there was an option now if anybody uses text requests, they are the ability for employees through the My Time to send you as a planner a request that's free text. To ask a question or to do something. We've now got the ability to turn that feature off should you not want people to just send you text requests that aren't specific to an absence or an overtime request. It's just more a general question. You can now turn that feature off. Moving on to overtime now. So this was a new feature in March, which it prevents employees adding overtime on days where they have an all-day absence. So if I'm on holiday for a particular day, this now will decline my overtime, and you can see this message just at the bottom here. It says your overtime request has been declined automatically due to a full day absence. So I can't apply for overtime when I've been off sick or off sick on a day or whatever it might be. If I've got a full day absence, partial day absences are okay, but if it's a full day absence, the system will decline that overtime request on the day where I've had a full day absence. Next one is in people. So in March, we introduction to the people module in the web. So you're all familiar, hopefully, with the people module in the client. That's where you add your employees and you give them the skills and their workflow control sets and those kind of things. You can now actually do some of those things from the web. So in the web module, you can set employees' details, you can assign a shift bag to them, and budget groups, as well as contract schedules. So for anybody who hasn't used people in the web, it's similar to what people is in the main client. Previously, it was a view-only screen. I could see information, but I couldn't do anything. But now you have the ability to modify those, and it's really useful if, for whatever reason, you don't have access to the client. Then being able to access that information via the web to change somebody's contract or give them a different shift bag, you can now do through the browser version as well. This was a change, I think, that those people who've maybe used Calabrio for a long time have been waiting for a little bit. It was a new adherence report. And for those of you who've been looking at adherence, there is a view within the My Time app or within the web version where you're looking at real-time adherence. You can see a person's adherence score. But that adherence score was not calculated in the same way as the adherence report within the reporting suite in the solution. So you could end up with two slightly different adherent calculations depending on which screen you view or which report you view. So within the March release, they introduced a new adherence report which now matches the score that you see within the real-time adherence screen within the client. So it's this adherence per agent report at the top, and the view is very similar to what you see in the client, where you see these adherence scores. You can see in this bottom visual where we've got those same adherence ready time scores as you would see in the real-time screen. So now we've got a report that matches that real-time adherence report and calculates adherence in the same way as the real-time adherence screen does. And that was something that was missing.
And Chris, just on that one, is that because it now takes account of anything that's been neutralised as the view does and etc.
Yeah, it's through the adherence screen. Obviously, you can make people in adherence. You can mark it as neutral, or you can mark it within adherence, and that recalculates the score. The previous adherence report was more of a true adherence, so it didn't kind of take those measures into account, but now it does, and we've got that report that now matches that adherence score within the real-time adherence screen.
Yeah, I know a few people have asked me about that in the past, so hopefully that's music to a few people's ears.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that report's now available. It's in the report, and it's the top one called adherence per agent. So that was kind of it for the March updates, and hopefully you've all seen that those updates before, and there's something that's kind of familiar to you. And what I'd like to do is kind of jump into the product now and look at some of the features that are in the current release. And we've kind of talked about it already. It's a new feature that's been introduced into the web view. So hopefully you're all familiar with this Teams screen that you have within the web, which is mainly used for your supervisors, where they can add and modify schedules by selecting an action, and they have this option to move an activity or move a shift within this screen by selecting from the drop down and providing that functionality, which is fine. It works, it works okay. What Calabrio have introduced now is a new feature. So you should see at the top of your Teams screen, and I think most of you have this version of Calabrio right now. It's 8.9.625, I believe, is the current release that's out there right now. And in Teams, you should see this new option. And I think Charlie mentioned this at the beginning. It's kind of enticing you to say, hey, there's a new feature. why not have a look at it? So it's not being forced on you, it's given the option to have a look at it. And when you click on it, it will launch a similar view to what you're looking at for Teams. However, what you might notice is as I'm moving my mouse, there's this little slider bar that's appearing. And if I click on an activity, I now have the option to move that activity by using a drag and drop. So if I want to move somebody's break, I can slide it to another time and the system will update that break and fill in the background activity accordingly. And that's the same also for shifts. I can extend and shorten shifts just by using the drag and drop feature as opposed to having to go into the actions and update that schedule that way. And this is kind of just shows that some of the features and functionality that will be coming in, as Charlie mentioned, they'll be moving to the web more and more, and these little ease of use features, they do make a big difference to be able to drag and drop and slide schedules. It just makes life a little bit easier. So hopefully you should, for those of you the cloud solution, should have this feature available within your Teams, and you can click on it and you can try it out and see if it's something that you want to do. And if it is and you're happy with it, definitely suggest you apply that feedback and let Calabrio know it's a good function, because it will lead to the development of more and more functionality within the web to drive better productivity or better use for you guys.
Chris, I had a go at this earlier in the week. I really like it. I think it's really intuitive. I like the kind of faded line, so you know what time it is. That's difficult with the Teams ones as it is. So hopefully they'll reintroduce that into the Teams one at some point as well. But I really like if you click on the show staffing, the line actually hovers along both. So if wherever you are there, it also does it on the chart as well.
Exactly,
So, it's a really clever feature. I just want to give that feedback because I thought it was really good, and I like the way they're going with it. I mean, there's still a lot of features to add to this, like you can't move, the whole shift, by an hour or stuff like that. So you still have to go back and forth between teams in this schedule. But hopefully this is kind of a good starting point for all of those new features to come. But yeah, really, really good.
100%. Yeah, Chase. It's really good because you can see I've got some short stuff, and you can see there at 5:15. So if I want to try and cover some of the gaps, I can simply maybe extend somebody's schedule to kind of cover some of those gaps, and that'll update the staffing chart as I do it as well. So yeah, it's a really really good feature, and I think it will just be leading on to more and more things in the future as we go.
Brilliant. Thanks for the feedback, Imran. And just before you move on, Chris, Jerry has asked in the chat, where does the ASM appear on the Agent My Time? I think we might have been frantically scrambling around in the background. If we don't get you an answer, Jerry, we will come back to you.
Yeah, so it appears, Jerry, just for your knowledge, it does appear in the message feature at the top of their My Time. So when you look at My Time, there's a message option which shows them the messages. It'll appear in there, but if you've enabled the push notifications, which you can do in the system settings in the client, in fact I'll log in now and show you.
Yeah, I've seen a push notification come through on my mobile. The guys don't really have the mobiles on the desk, so they need to see it on the web rather than the mobile.
Okay. It'll appear in the if I click on My Time here, hopefully you can still see my screen.
I can't see it on my test, but yeah.
Right, okay. You see they've got these messages up at the top here. Can you see where you've got messages? That's where those should appear.
I can't see them from what I've just done in my.
Okay. All right, I'll check that out for you, Jerry. But that's where they should appear.
Yeah.
In there, so we'll have a look.
Yes.
Yeah, good feedback though, Jerry. Thanks. We'll pick it up with you.
Just on that word feedback, when you were showing the ability to shift or a break earlier on, Imran, you appreciated your feedback, but do you notice top right there is an opportunity to deliver that feedback directly back to Calabrio? I wondered if you've done that.
Yes, we've been
Yes,
doing.
I thought you might have done. You sound like somebody who's very engaged, so really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely use that feedback. If it's something you like and it's a new feature, then you've got that feedback at the top where you can drive that through.
Great.
Okay. So in terms of new features for this month, this release, that's kind of the main feature. There are some ease of use access views for the portal for anybody who's using screen readers. I can't demonstrate to you because I don't have a screen reader. It would be really difficult, but there is some ease of use functionality for anybody who's got impaired vision to be able to view some of these screens and use them in a little bit of a better way going forward as well. But the main one was this, or the biggest one was this this drag and drop feature. So that brings us kind of the end of the new features and brings us into the next topic, which was the questions that we had, right?
Yeah,
And
so your first one, Chris, I think you were going to cover us around. So networking topics we asked you out for. We got quite a lot in at the last minute, so we'll cover what we can. But the one that we got in advance was around channel prioritization, which I think you're going to cover in the live client now.
yeah, exactly, yeah.
An example.
Yeah, so just a quick one on what we mean by channel prioritization. And I think it was Becca who asked this one, or maybe it's Becca and Imran, I can't remember, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
Becky as well, I think, from Connect Health asked it
Connect
as well.
Health as well. So this is about, and I'm assuming it's about kind of prioritizing different types of lines depending on what type of work it is over other ones. So prioritizing phone calls over back office work. So that if we've got a resource challenge, we can kind of put more hours into phone work and reduce the hours on back office or emails or whatever it might be. And that's kind of where we're going to go with this topic is how do we push more work into different channels that you might deem as important, whether they're high value customers, whether it's a different type of work over other channels. And it all lies in the actual setup of your workloads and your skills. So in here you've got a properties section, and when you're go to the optimization tab, you've got these two boxes, which is a priority and an avoid box. And this priority box here has a little slider which allows you to adjust the prioritization of this line against other lines, other types of work. So this is a kind of a back office line, and I might decide that what I want to do is reduce the priority of the back office work to a low priority than what I've set up as phone calls. So if I take you this back office one and I've reduced that priority down to say, actually, this is a low priority and I want to treat it in a, not a lesser way, but I want the system to understand that this takes a secondary place to what I've got against my other work, which is my phone work, to which I've got set as a medium priority. So previously, those kind of prioritization levels were set to the same. I was treating back office and phone works to the same level. So when I was generating the schedules, the system was equally distributing employees' time across both back office and telephony work. But by changing the prioritization of the back office area, by dropping that down, I've now told the system that when it's scheduling, this takes a secondary placement to maybe my phone calls. The other thing I wanted to talk about before I show you the impacts or the effects of that is this avoid section here. And this is where you can change how the system places schedules during schedule generation or schedule optimization. And what we're saying is that when you're generating schedules, do we want the system to try to reduce understaffing, or do we want the system to prevent overstaffing? So if we've got a scenario where you've got a number of hours where you're maybe 1 or 2 people short, but the surrounding hours are already overstaffed, by having this in the middle, the system treats those under and overstaffing intervals at the same level. But actually by sliding this to the understaffing, what you might find is the system tries to place a schedule around the intervals where you're understaffed, even if that causes overstaffing in the surrounding intervals. Or by sliding it the other way to the overstaffing, what we're trying to do is avoid placing schedules in periods where we are already overstaffed, which might mean you get some gaps in understaffing. So there is no right or wrong with these settings. There's not a setting we can say this is the way to set it up. It's very dependent on your business, but it's something that you can change even once schedules have been generated, because they're also used by the schedule optimizer. And that's kind of where I was going to go into this now. So what I've done with my back office one is I've already generated my schedules, and which I've back office and telephony is the same, but I've now reduced the priority of back office, which means if I was to actually go in and look at my schedules for a particular day, I'll just go into this week here.
And just while that's opening there, Chris, and because you and I had well, you and Indy had a long conversation around this, didn't we? Because
yeah,
I think Chris and myself do a lot of consultancy, not just around systems, but around resource planning in general. And I think the consensus that we came up with was that where possible, you don't want to be in a position where you've got to use these sliders, because if you're correctly staffed for your overall demand, and you've got the flexibility built into your schedules, then it should schedule automatically, efficiently for you. I think it's key to point out that these sliders are kind of when you haven't got enough staff, or you haven't got the flexibility in your toolkit to be able to match the changes in demand that are being thrown at you. So hopefully that makes sense and gives you a bit of context. But so they're almost like extra tools to help you when you aren't at optimum.
Yeah, I agree, because I guess one of the challenges, maybe we've all seen this, is that if customers have the ability to send an email, and we treat that email as less of a priority as a call, when they don't get a response to that email, they call you anyway. So you're now kind of getting 2 for the price of 1, right? They've sent an email. We don't have enough resource to answer both our emails, our calls effectively. So what we do is we prioritize the call work. So the emails maybe wait a little bit longer, and all that does is prompt me to phone you. So it definitely has a longer term impact of call drivers. And that's why I think we just need to make sure that having that right number of people, and some of you might have heard of this before, it's kind of Maslow's hierarchy of needs is a philosophy of our people, and it talks about how we need to kind of understand ourselves to achieve certain things. And if you apply that logic to a contact center, one of the things, the fundamental thing or building block of a contact center is to have the right number of people, because without the right number of people you won't achieve good quality, you won't achieve first call resolution, you won't achieve your service levels and all of these kind of things. So it's fundamental that when you're staffing your business you have the right number of people, otherwise it's going to cause challenges. However, we also know that there are cases where things don't go according to plan, absence is higher or whatever, and therefore you do have to prioritize these lines. So what I've got here in my schedule window is I've got these 2 lines here in which I can see I've got a demand, forecasted hours of workload for back office, and based on the schedules that I originally created with my priorities the same, this is the number of hours that Calabrio is scheduled to meet that demand. It's not quite where I want it to be because I'm understaffed, but I'm not just understaffed on back office, I'm understaffed on my calls as well. So this is that exact scenario we're talking about. I don't have enough resource to do both. I've got to prioritize one over the other. So what the aim of this exercise is to try and take some of this scheduled hours that has been planned against my back office and redistribute them against my call taking lines. So by changing that priority and reducing the back office priority, if I just take Monday the 3rd as an example, and I was to optimize those schedules, I'm not necessarily going to change people's schedules. I'm not going to change their shift categories, and I'm not going to change their days off. All I'm going to do is optimize the shifts within the day and the intra-balance. So people who are on an early will stay on an early, people on a late or a day shift will stay on a late. I'm not really moving their times, I'm just moving the activities within a day. And if I run that optimization tool, what we should see is the system reanalyzes those staffing requirements. And you can see now it's now dropped my schedule hours, which was 40 hours scheduled against this back office work on that Monday. It's dropped that scheduled resource to 13 hours. And it's actually distributed that work now to my other telephony skills on that day to try and force more work into telephony, because we've said the back office, or the channel of back office, on this case has taken a less of a priority, and we need to push more resource into calls. So by sliding that priority line of the skill down a little bit, we've been able to take some of the hours of email or back office work and push them into our telephony lines to get a better fit of resource. It's not something, like I said, we'd advocate doing all the time, because the more you ignore your emails, the more work you're going to get into some point, whether that's a second email or a social media chat or a phone call. But in the events where you do have challenges, and because phones are what we call an immediate response channel, it needs to be answered quickly, and emails can maybe sit there a little bit longer while you get some overtime and whatever, you can change those prioritizations and use the schedule optimizing tool to take work from one area and move it into another area.
Chris, I mean, it's good you're touching on this one. Sorry to keep jumping in here.
It's okay.
It's okay, that's what I want.
But yeah, this is kind of the classic issue that we currently have, and we still have. I think we've spoken about this last year, and we had to we slowly dropped off a little bit because of other priorities and the whole bloody pandemic and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And we kind of lost our momentum on that. So maybe we can potentially find some time to re-pick that up if that's possible. But we still continue to have the same issues, and probably not as drastic as they were. But when we originally schedule, even though we've got those sliders, we've literally put it on the extremes just so it would stop putting 10 people on chat. We've even used the part in the actual forecasting modules where in the interval you can put a minimum maximum under that particular skill, and it still seems to just add way too many people. And even going through the optimization that you've suggested, it does drop it down slightly, but it still doesn't bring it down to the numbers we want. I mean, we're basically telling the system, you know what, forget everything, just give us one. Just one at any period of time. If there's a little bit of overlap and it goes to 2, that's fine because of breaks, stuff like that. We get it, but that's it. And you still get 7, 8, 9, 10, and then 4, 5 on emails. And in fact, it's always under scheduling calls. And we always have to. One of the painful things at the moment is we're constantly having to manually adjust it because the optimization just unfortunately doesn't work for us.
Okay. Yeah, it's definitely something we need to look at again. I think we talked last year, beginning of this year, about the kind of the rule sets and the shift bags that you've got and how we can simplify those a little bit. Because I think you've got quite a lot from the top of my head. So I think some of the simplification, using some of the master activities and the functionality, it definitely does what it needs to do. I think we just need to focus on your setup a little bit more and see where it's getting confused or what's causing that confusion, and get it to a point where we can use it like we've just shown you there to kind of push that work into different places.
Great, thank you.
So for Becky, who also I think raised that question as well, does that kind of answer some of your questions as well?
It does, yeah. I think I'm looking forward to playing around with those priorities to see whether or not that does help us, because we are definitely overstaffed for admin rather than telephony, but that may be down to to set up rather than system. So yeah, I'm looking forward to changing that and seeing what we can do. We are very much of the opinion that telephony, we need to speak to those patients when they call. The admin work can be done outside of working hours, but we need to have the telephony covered.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there are some configuration that needs to go into this. You know, it's the skills of your employees. You know, if they don't have telephony skills, then it's not going to push work to them. So we've got to think about that, the setup of the master activities to make sure that covers all of the types of work that we're trying to prioritize. But providing those setups are right, then we should be able to kind of push those workloads along with some of the other settings like occupancy or whatever it might be, to try and spread those workloads a little bit more evenly.
Yeah, absolutely. And as long as then the reporting shows us how short we are on admin, therefore we can forecast if we need to have overtime or additional help or support coming from elsewhere, then that would be useful.
Yeah, perfect. Okay.
Thank you.
Let us know how you get on with that, Becky. Because I think that's an important point. Is we're all, I mean, obviously we've got managers and heads of functions, but ultimately we've probably all been analysts at some point. And I think it's not to be afraid of the system. It's if you're providing you're playing around with a period that's not been released to people, so they can't see the changes you're making, then you can optimize, as Chris has done there. One of the beauties of Calabrio is the optimization process is very slick. And so if you optimize once it's not giving you the results, have a look around, check the things that Chris has said and redo it. I think that's kind of the other misconception you sometimes get when you do consultancy, is that people expect the WFM system to be like a big red button that you press it and it does everything. But actually we're teams of analysts, and what keeps us in a job is the fact that we are analysts that can interpret data and make decisions that maybe a system can't, because there's too many moving parts to be able to move them all and get them all right. So so I'm liking your enthusiasm around going and playing away with it.
Yeah, one thing I have struggled with is that we've got an agent who's changed shift, and it was done quite short notice. So she now starts earlier, part of the cancellation team finishes earlier, and we've got set rules for that shift, but the optimization won't plug in those new breaks and lunch periods that they should have with their new shift. It's keeping all of the old ones in there.
All right. Yeah, we'll have a look at that, Becky.
Fab, thank you.
If you can get a ticket open with the guys with Indy support, and we can take a look.
Fab. Okay, thank you.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for running through all that, Chris. We'll give you a quick break and go to Indy and Rich to run through the ideals portal, if that's okay. If we've got time, we'll come back for any AOB around stuff around that. But hopefully everyone's found that useful. Just before you share your screen, Rich, I think Indy, you wanted to bring up the ideas process, didn't you?
Yeah.
So stick that on my screen, and hopefully that's coming through there, is it?
Yeah, it's there. It's good.
And I'll hand it over to the two of you, and Rich, you take the screen whenever you need it to talk.
Yeah,
to it.
thank you.
Okay. Shall I just go through the process first?
Yeah, no probs. It's a bit of a double act job, isn't it, Indy?
Yeah.
So, and you know how much I love talking, so I'll probably interrupt you.
Okay, so the ideas process is, as you use the system, you'll find that you'll have some sort of wish list of, I wish I could configure the system to show me this. As Imran has mentioned, if there was like an ideas bubble that as soon as you get an idea on the screen that you're on, you can sort of instantly say, right, I'd like to see this, or can I configure this? And so it's not a case of, well, the computer says no, it can't be done. It's a case of, yes, actually we've got this ideas portal. Submit your ideas, and very much like a social media post, the more likes it gains, the more chance it has of getting onto a roadmap and then eventually getting into development. Now, I might be a bit cheeky by saying this, but as we've got like this networking event now, and we're all sort of getting to know each other, we can sort of create our own version of a European Super League where we can sort of vote on each other's ideas. Sort of you scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, and try and get the items that you want to see sort of at the top of the list. So that is a possibility. Now, as business partners, we don't have access to this ideas portal at the moment, but we will do in due course. I know Richard's working on that. So I'm going to hand you over to Richard now, who's just going to go through some of the ideas portal, the look and feel of what it can show you and what ideas are currently in there at the moment.
Yeah, thanks, Indy. Yeah, exactly. I think if you can think of this portal as a place for you to kind of constantly go in and check and as Indy says, look for ideas from this team and vote for them, engage with it, review what people have submitted and give your feedback. That's exactly as Calabrio what we want to hear. We're developing more and more features on the basis of what you want rather than necessarily the vision that our own product managers hold in their heads, or things that we've stolen from competitors, which are often some of the kind of key sources of product development ideas. We want our user community to shape the product that ultimately you use, and that's what this whole ideas portal is all about. But if I just take you to a couple of things, I'm going to go to a couple of slides, and then I'll actually show you the ideas portal itself. So if I start here, I wanted to just pick up on a point, Imran, that you raised about that login experience. So if you navigate to the ideas environment, this little arrow in a box here is basically an indication that you're moving to a different system. You're going to an application that resides somewhere else, and you have to enter new credentials for it. That's because that the ideas environment sits outside of the Teleopti, outside of the WFM application itself. So it would be lovely to have a consistency to take your credentials from here and have them carry across. So I've noted that down as an idea in its own right, because that just makes sense. We need to make it easy for you to submit ideas rather than worrying about different credentials. So I'll take a look into that. But what I wanted to just talk about on the navigation piece is, if you've experienced the ideas environment as a Teleopti user over the past few years, you'll have been into an environment that looks something like this. So it was updated after we made the Teleopti acquisition, but it was basically just to add some red color branding for Calabrio rather than the blue of Teleopti, but it was Teleopti's idea environment. And when you go there now, you see this message, right? We have moved. And that's really just a reflection of many of the things that we're doing as we absorb the world of Teleopti into Calabrio. So where we have moved to, as it says down here, is a Calabrio Success Center, which I'm going to show you now. You may have bookmarked this particular ideas page, so it's probably a good idea now to start thinking about bookmarking the new Calabrio Success Center, which looks something like this. And this is where this extra set of credentials Imran comes in. You're actually moving into a different part of the Calabrio world. So if you make a note of this, although you of course will navigate there from your screen, but this Success Center is more than an ideas portal. So I just wanted to show you what this looks like. I'm going to stop sharing this bit and now actually share the web page and take you there. So if I show you this, so this is my I've bookmarked this particular area. So I've got my little bookmark up here somewhere for the Success Center. If you've not engaged with this before, you might need to go through a registration process. So just go complete that, and then you'll get access. But I'm a Calabrio employee, so I've got my own little kind of login button here, and ultimately you'll come to something that looks like, hey presto, this. So this is a really useful portal for information. So I'd encourage you to engage, not just from a product ideas point of view, but more generally engage in this environment. But if I take you to the product ideas piece, this is what we've got. This is the ideas portal. At the top of the screen, we've just got some kind of navigation and some assistance for you on how you should interface and engage and get the most out of the actual ideas portal. So there's some suggestions about how best to get your ideas noticed and what type of information to capture with the idea. And then I think there's a recommendation that probably best to do some searching first to see if the idea has already been covered off. And then to kind of get into the whole voting and commentary and feedback environment of that before you enter your own new idea. So that just completely makes sense. But if we drop down here a little bit, this is where we start to see the ideas that have been entered. It's currently sorted, or its default position is to show the most popular. I tend to kind of all do this, and let's take a look at the recent stuff first. And Lorna, I know Lorna, she's one of our UK customers, one of our UK users. I know Lorna's added a couple of things this week, so I just thought I'd share what Lorna's adding and the type of commentary that she's submitted. But you can go into one of these new ideas and start voting for it. So you go into this place and then start to add your votes and add your comments. So you've got the opportunity to do that. So here's a little vote button, which tells you that you absolutely agree with this. And then what we've also got in here is, because this is an ideas portal for the entire Calabrio portfolio, here's the list of other products that we've got. You can start to just see the workforce management ideas. And then a little bit further down, you can start to see the status of those ideas. So here's all the new ones that have been entered. So they're new in the sense that they've been entered and Calabrio hasn't yet adjusted the status. So that status could be that we're not planning to do it, or it's on a roadmap already, that we've kind of moved from on a roadmap into development, we've provided early access, or we've delivered the feature. So you can kind of get a sense of that flow that we referenced earlier into how the journey that the ideas takes. So that was simply what we wanted to talk you through. I just want to encourage you all to engage with this. I think it's a perfect opportunity as you go through the review process with the team at SVL here, that you start to talk through some of this together and start to really brainstorm those ideas and shape them and add as rich an explanation as possible, and then get them submitted. And as we said, if you use your collective power, the Super League that Indy referred to, then I think you've got an opportunity to start influencing the product direction of Calabrio, which I think is a wonderful thing, and certainly something that we encourage you all to take part in. So that was really the area of ideas that I wanted to share with you. Any questions on that? Hopefully very useful.
Can I just also say, if you do have any ideas, it'd be good if you came through to the service desk first, and we can look into them with yourselves and try and find any workarounds if possible first. And if there's not a workaround, then of course we'll just say, direct you towards the portal and say, log it there. But by all means, please do come to us so that we have visibility as well of what kind of requests you need.
Yeah, thanks, Indy. I think that's a really valid point. Yeah, great.
Yeah, that is a great point. And I think just while you were going through that item, Becky had asked around the service desk, and I know we've got quite a lot of new customers. So Anne had kindly added into the chat the service desk email address and the phone number, just to remind people that the SVL are contactable through that method. So that's great. Thank you. We've actually got a little bit of time left for those that are planning on finishing still at midday. So we can take a few more AOB questions around system functionality, things like that, because I've got one slide that I wanted to wrap up on, which is around the next session and how we take this group forward and usefulness. But before we do, is there any sort of questions that people want to ask while we've got this group of people together? If you can ask it either through chat or through on screen, whichever's easiest for you.
I've got another question, Richard, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no, fire away, Jerry. That's absolutely perfect.
I'm now trying to forecast email volumes, and the service level that I think you can enter into Calabrio is 6 hours or less, due to the restrictions. Now we've got a service level of like 12 hours or 24 hours or even 48 hours to get back to some customers. Is there a workaround there, or is there something that I'm missing again in the system?
Definitely not one that I'm aware of, Jerry. You stumped me that one. I've jotted it down though, so I can see some grey matter whirring away on the screen. So I don't know if Indy, Charlie, or Chris have got any immediate answers. If not, we'll have a look and come back to you.
I think that's an excellent point. Could I ask the rest of you who've using email, could you just tap into the chat if you could, the SLA for email that you've got? So what, Jerry, what did you say? Is yours 24 hours?
Well, it's 6 hours, but mostly it's 24 hours. And in the wiki, it only says a maximum of 6 hours that you can configure.
Yeah.
I think it is maxed out at that, but that feels to me like that's a really easy fix. So Ash has put in there in the chat 24 hours on email for us.
Yeah, so, thanks, Ash.
So Ash, what do you do then if it's maxed out at 6? If you don't mind me asking.
It's a bit of a cheeky workaround. It doesn't do everything, but I just push the efficiency to 100%, and that kind of ameliorates some of it.
Okay, makes sense. So you play around with some of the other settings to try and compensate for it not giving you the exact what you want.
Yeah.
Imran's come back with 24 for us. So 24 would seem to be a very, very popular answer. So yeah, feedback we wanted and feedback we're getting. So it's that's definitely one that. So if we just need to do a double check, make sure it's definitely not there. It sounds like it's not. Then somebody just. One of the things that I think she's reiterated is that at the moment SVL can't raise ideas. It has to be a customer, but we don't mind telling the rest of you, if you're okay with us doing that, to kind of jump on board and vote for it. So if somebody would be so kind to add that on the ideas portal, we can then encourage people to jump on and vote for it. But no, great question, Jerry. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Jerry. Yeah. If you've not engaged with ideas, that could be your first one. That'd be good.
Okay, yeah, we'll do.
Brilliant.
Yeah, and if you let us know when you've done it, and then we can share the link with everybody else. The Super League, Indy. The Super
League. I like it.
A successful one, though.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that anyone else wanted to ask while we've got everybody on? Okay,
I'm kind of interested in the collective years of experience of planning on this call. It's phenomenal, really, that the experience that everybody's got. So there must be great opportunities to share that knowledge and insight.
Just thinking about what Jerry said there, Richard. I thought we had been able to do it on 24 hours. I'll kind of have to defer to Ian. I'm not sure if he's happy to come on and explain, but I thought we were able to get it working, and we didn't have the issue with the 6-hour restrictions. But yeah, I don't know if Ian wants to jump in here and tell us how he's done it on, because he's kind of the forecast and senior forecast, and he deals with that module completely.
It's a good question. Actually, I have to try and remind myself how we've done it, but I seem to recall that it had to do with the number of intervals you use, because you could only set it up for a maximum number of intervals. So if it's only a maximum of 6 hours, then it might be because you're using 15-minute intervals. But it's such a long time since I've looked at it, but I seem to think it had to do with having only a maximum number of intervals that you could use.
Yeah, that's a good pointer, actually, Ian. And I tell you what, because we haven't got a definitive answer, we'll take it away. We'll get back to you all. And if it's not, then maybe Jerry, we can ask you to raise the idea and then get round everybody else and to push it forward, if that's okay.
Yeah, thanks.
Brilliant. Well, I don't want to keep you from your lunch, because that'll make me the biggest villain ever for the day. But I just wanted to share one last slide just to ask whether you feel okay to answer now in the chat, or whether you want feedback afterwards. I'm just really keen to know how you found the session today. Was it useful? What works for you? What didn't work for you? If we're going to do things like this, I've already had sort of similar chats with a number of you already individually, but if we're going to do something like this going forward, we might not have the richness of content because we've had a whole new system to show you. So if we did these on a regular basis, would kind of bi-monthly. One of the things that Chris was saying was we could maybe replace the PowerPoint in the bi-monthly months that we've been sending out with new features, and do that online, and then share the video afterwards for those people that can't make it, and maybe bringing it to life in that way works for people. But be really interested to hear from anybody who wants to speak now, or Chris
Thanks,
has got an answer for you, Jerry. So he's going to contact you about that. But yeah, sorry, Imran, you're coming on screen to.
Yeah, I really like the session. It's long, so maybe the future ones we can cut it down to more bite-sized things. But I think it's fine. It's because we launched it and there's a lot of information. But in future, I guess maybe it's not going to be as many probably updates. Maybe it will. I don't know. But I really like the session. I like the collaboration factor, and I'm sure that we'll get better and better as and when we kind of learn from each one. But it'd be good to kind of, what I would like is, when we do the next one, it'd be kind of good to say, oh, okay, we took away these points from the last one. Let's cover these and see how they progress as well. So that'd be quite nice to introduce as well if we do obviously continue them.
Yeah, I've definitely took that one down. So brilliant, thanks for that. I suppose the last thing that I was going to close off, because people are dropping off, is we've thought about other ways to network as well, and based on that kind of Super League of voting for ideas, what would be good is to ask if anyone's interested in setting up a group on different media as well. So there are other Telegram groups out there, for example. That's the right hand logo for those that aren't aware, which is a bit like WhatsApp and Messenger, but a bit more secure. Would people be interested in doing something like that, where you could kind of, as a SVL customer group, share and comment and challenges that you're having, and me, Chris, and Indy have sort of said we'll be on there as well and dip in, and kind of that will also help us to discover topics to come back on here. Or would you rather just keep it through your work email address? So really open to trying different avenues. We tried a LinkedIn group previously, which I think, because you've got to log into something, it's a bit more difficult, whereas what we were thinking is kind of WhatsApp or Telegram in particular might be a good medium for people to use. So yeah, it'd be good if you want to feedback in the chat, or drop me an email, or next time we speak, let me know. And they're easy things to set up, and we can get up and running in no time.